How's it going, Starlings? Welcome to a brand new breakdown and review for the finale of Stargirl Season 1, Stars and Stripe Part 2, and my god, this episode was incredible. I think you guys know that already, but just looking over the season as a whole, this is how you do it. Other DC TV shows, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's other DC TV shows that I love, and I don't mean to deliberately draw a comparison, but I suppose it is an accurate one because this is now going to the CW, but look at all the other CW shows this year, and then put it up against Stargirl's first 13 episode season, and I feel like the others pale in comparison. This is clean, this is cut, this is entertaining, this is everything you could really want in what a show should be doing in its first season to be successful. But without going on too much longer, guys, I've got a lot to talk about, so this is probably going to be a bit of a longer video as usual, to be honest, but with those setups for season 2, the twist, the surprises, the final freaking scene, you can bet your ass I have got quite a bit to say. So look at this as a hand-in-hand episode or after episode kind of guide, if you will, to the episode itself. So sit down, relax, get some food, get some drinks, get some popcorn, get a coffee. I don't care what you get, but you know, let's get ready to talk Stargirl's finale. Oh, and of course, leave a like on the video if you do enjoy the content on this channel and what I've been providing with Stargirl Season 1. And of course, I love to read every single one of your comments, so I need to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. So this episode began with a flashback of 3 minutes ago. We had Bowen's kid. Obviously, his mom is dead now. Like, I suppose that was genuinely the death of her, which was a bit disappointing. Without going into that too much, as I said in my last review, I was like, I suppose maybe that did kill her, but is that it? And we all know about the extra scenes that have been cut out of Stargirl, so I bet there was probably a few extra scenes with Anya Bowen, the Fiddler's character. This whole beginning set up for that satellite coming from under the pitch, emitting those waves. But where it really started off is, of course, with Courtney dodging Pat in S.T.R.I.P.E. He was absolutely trying to squash her, and of course, this is where the episode's pace really picked up. More or less from this second onwards, it was just a crazy, wild ride. As we know from the previous episodes, the nervous system of those who resist the conversion of the mind will shut down, their bodies will shut down. We had Brainwave going ham, and already in this episode, in this scene, I was caught off guard where we had Courtney saying, "It's me, Pat, Courtney, your daughter." I was like, oh my, because that, you know, slightly broke through to Pat, who manages to fight the brainwaves. As for the ISA members, they have earpieces to resist it, and we had Chuck at the same time. So many scenes going on simultaneously in this episode, hacking into the gambler's account and donating all of his money to charity. But ultimately here, Pat breaks free and he heard every word. This episode was wholesome in so many ways, but the Pat and Courtney stuff was the real MVP. And I think you guys understand why, because the contrast between them at the beginning of the season to now, it just felt full circle. And it didn't feel cheesy or cringy at all. It felt like when Courtney said those words to Pat and he said things like, you know, I heard every single word, and the whole daughter reference, it felt like we were exactly where we needed to be, and it felt great. Now, this is where we finally get to that moment, due to Icicle saying it's time to take care of the JSA for once for all. We had Justin snap back into being normal from the brainwaves, and yeah, that moment in the trailer where they were all in Dragon King's lair with Stripe, Stargirl, Justin, Hourman, Wildcat versus Sportsmaster, Icicle, Dragon King, and Tigress. That moment finally came, and I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but this was just incredible. I'm not even joking. Like, I know a lot of people are big fans of Arrow, and I do applaud some of their choreography across the seasons. It has been fantastic, and there was definitely a couple of notable ones which come to my mind from Arrow Season 8, the final season. Do you guys remember that really long fight? But this, what they do in Stargirl, it feels like cinema. I'm not trying to over-exaggerate there. It feels like cinema in comparison to what we typically get from DC TV shows in terms of combat. Now, before anyone mentions it, why do you always make comparisons to the Arrowverse? Or that, you know, well, it makes sense to. Like, this is technically in the Arrowverse. It's now fully going to the CW. I just want you guys to know I'm not putting flack on those shows. You guys know I like it. But the comparisons are important just because I feel like the distinction between Stargirl and these other shows is borderline unfathomable. It really is that much of a markup. We even had the gambler unlocking the door to Grundy, and we finally get to see a little tease of him there, although it was very dark, but more about that in just a minute. I loved seeing Icicle versus Stargirl. I mean, seeing those projectiles go out, you know, little icicles, but also that ice shield and all of this fast-paced action was just like eye candy for people like us. We also had Justin versus Dragon King. This was awesome. Obviously, everything was going on at the same time, but this is where Cindy escaped, and she killed her father with her very own shiv. Now, this actually was something I didn't necessarily expect. I feel like I should have seen it coming, but it felt very, like, it made a lot of sense, to be honest, especially with Cindy and her relationship with her father and what her father has done to her. You can only imagine. But, you know, this is interesting stuff for Cindy, especially that scene with Eclipso later, which we will get into. I may very well do a whole other video given how much stuff we got, and it can be all dedicated to like season 2 stuff, so keep an eye out on the channel for that. I also just loved that slow-mo part towards the end of the fight. You guys know, with Courtney flipping, and then, you know, we had Jordan just getting dogpiled on by all the JSA members due to all of the other ISA members being taken out. I'm not quite sure though how I quite feel about Death at the moment, and I will get to this, but and the reason why I mention this is because I wrote down in the bullet point just as Pat was about to rain down on Jordan. Like, so like he was literally about to use S.T.R.I.P.E to squash him and kill him. Usually, and I think we can all agree, traditionally, heroes don't kill. They would like apprehend, try and lock them up or something or another. You guys know in my trailer breakdown video and predictions video, I was kind of talking about this exact thing. Where are we at with that? In some iterations of stuff, heroes can go to killing or to the length of killing, usually only when it's absolutely necessary. But it seems like here, a few of the heroes are quite happy to kill, and I was kind of surprised that Pat was getting ready to completely smash Icicle to pieces when his hands are kind of up in defense. I don't know, all I'm taking into account here is that I know there's a lot of people out there who prefer the whole, we should somehow find a way of, I don't know, you know, like the Flash, put him in the freaking pipeline. I know it's not that easy for Stargirl. The Flash is a very good excuse there. Hey, just lock him up in the pipeline. It's kind of easy to disregard any meta of the week or any villain, whereas here it's a bit more grounded, I suppose. Now, Grundy. Grundy looked so much better than what I thought. Now, I know the Stargirl CGI is pretty decent. It really is quite decent, but I thought, okay, with Grundy, they've been saving him all season. Maybe, obviously, that has a bit to do with budgetary reasons, but also probably because when they do want to reveal him, you may as well reveal him to his full extent for the first time, go ham with him, and that is exactly what they did. I was absolutely really impressed with that. It just looks so comic book accurate. The way he just was integrated into the scenes, there wasn't really any noticeable CGI slips, at least in my mind, or at least maybe from what I could just tell. I was just so taken back by this that it was way more, like I was expecting satisfactory, but this went way above that. We were all right with guessing that S.T.R.I.P.E versus Grundy was going to be a thing, even though Grundy was tearing him to pieces. We did have Wildcat and Stargirl begin to go after Brainwave, but that's when Cindy attacked Stargirl. Whilst this was happening, we did have Jordan hiding out behind a pillar. Stargirl didn't exactly have time for Cindy, so she just finally, you know, used the staff to send out a cosmic blast, and well, that was it for Cindy for quite some time during the episode, but her scene later was just so incredible. Now, at this point, Brainwave did leave temporarily from, you know, using his powers to amplify the signal to go help kill the kids, and this is where we literally see Henry King Jr. pretending to be one of Dragon King's drones, as at this point we had Wildcat going after Brainwave, but she was just faced with a load of the drones. Now, this was a really big kind of tease, like an unfair tease almost, for all of those who are hoping to see Henry King Jr. again. Yolanda decided to take the risk. She knew that it wasn't Henry King Jr. himself, but it was obviously Henry King. Brainwave pretending to be his son to try and appeal to Yolanda, as he knows that they had a connection, and she literally just cuts his throat. Yet again, killing. I'm not saying I necessarily have a problem with this. It's just, what I am excited for with this is that Yolanda definitely is dark for the rest of the episode. She's got a bit on her mind, and no matter what, you know, whoever kills who, even if they're a villain and it's done in slightly a comedic kind of way, you still have to kind of tackle the fact that you've taken a human life. And what I meant with comedic obviously was Mike later with Jordan. Maybe that's a bit more digestible with him, because that guy was literally about to, I don't know, send a massive ice blast out in that moment, so Mike might not have had any other choice. And you could argue that Yolanda had no other choice, but I don't know, being a 15, 16-year-old girl cutting someone's throat, there's going to be some psychological kind of processing after that, and she already had some processing to do with Henry King Jr.'s death, so Yolanda's got a lot on her plate. Once again, I would love to know your opinions down in the comments below on on what you feel and think about heroes killing villains, because usually in the comics that isn't really done unless it's an absolute necessity. Kind of think along the lines of the end of Man of Steel, where Superman had to crack General Zod's neck to save that family, even though he could have done it another way. But still, you get my point. As I said though, as so many scenes going on at the same time, Stripe versus Grundy continued. The slow-mo Grundy face ripple punch was just perfect. There was so much going on in this moment. Grundy was ripping pieces out of Stripe, like basically all of his limbs, and proceeds to rip the core, which is when Rick comes out of nowhere. Rick only had 5 minutes left for Grundy to get some of that anger out that he's been holding all season long. Now, if you guys remember from my predictions and trailer breakdown video that I posted after my review last week, I said I don't know if there's been enough development for Our Man, because it was kind of predictable what was going to happen this episode, and I did call it. I was like, well, they're probably going to do the thing where he's like, oh, I'm not going to kill you. But I just felt like at the time, why would he do that? He's been adamant this whole time to kill Grundy, and all of a sudden he's just got to stop. But I feel like the way they did do it in this episode, even though it went exactly the way I thought it would, and even though I did say I didn't think that would be pulled off as well, because I feel like Rick didn't have enough development to kind of spare Grundy, the way they did do it and execute it just felt, I don't know, perfect. He got a lot of his frustration out. He got a lot of his anger out. And I don't know, just the way they decided to approach this scene with Rick having beaten the crap out of Solomon Grundy, his face really bruised and swollen up, like his left eye was really like beefed up. We have Grundy kind of cowering away. Basically, he yielded in the fight. So like he's like, look, I'm defenseless now. And we had Rick just about to crush him with a rock. But yeah, he came across really scared. And I think no matter how angry and how much we all probably would have predicted that Rick would legitimately want to kill Grundy, and there was not a point that I didn't believe that he didn't want to do that. But to hold a weapon up like a massive pile of rubble, about to execute somebody who was kind of quivering and who was yielded in the fight and who was holding his hands up, even if that person did kill your parents, there has to be like that extra layer down you have to reach for to be able to go through with executing someone in that moment. And Rick wasn't about that. He isn't like that deep down. When it comes to execution, aka meaning that you are killing somebody who is not putting up a fight, that takes an extra layer of something that Hero doesn't necessarily have. And that was pulled off in a way that I was very pleasantly surprised for, because I didn't think it would be right for Rick. I know I'm dragging out this point, but I don't know, this was really well done, and I was very, very happy with it. However, though, I do wish, just my only critique is that I would wish there was a little bit more time left in the hourglass, only because Grundy started walking away, and like his timer had already run out, like there was nothing left in the hourglass on the top half in that moment, so he's so lucky. He's so lucky that Grundy didn't really put two and two together and kill him, because he just could have. Even with Grundy carrying away and kind of wincing in the way he was in that moment, if he had just realized that he was just now a puny human who wouldn't even stand up against Solomon Grundy, he could have, even with his wounds, Grundy could have absolutely changed his mind and decimated Rick Tyler's Our Man. So for me, it's just a bit too coincidental that, he happened to run out of his timer and Grundy still walked off. It would have just been a bit more foolproof in my mind if he had like a few minutes left and then Grundy went off. Back on track, Stargirl flies off and starts blasting the hell out of the satellite. Everyone in Blue Valley regains control of their own self. And this is when Icicle walks in the office after Gambler gave him a bit of a tip that Beth needed to be stopped because she was going to bring the whole system down. And to be honest, with how cold Icicle is, I did feel it a bit convenient that he didn't decide to just kill Beth. He decided to freeze the goggles. I feel like after he killed Joey Zarek, why would he have restrained himself in this moment? So I feel like that wasn't so in line with his character. Maybe you could put it down to that he didn't want to kill a young girl in front of his crush, Barbara. I know at this point he had already committed to like letting Barbara die, even though after this he tried to kind of double back on that. But yeah, maybe he decided to spare Beth because it kind of would have been very brutal to do that in front of Barbara. Poor Chuck, rip Chuck. And one thing I did appreciate is that Beth hasn't obviously been a hands-on Dr. Midnight hero vigilante, if you will, but it shows her courage when she decided to charge after Icicle. She did get blasted back. It wasn't an icicle. I suppose that would have given her some kind of burn from just how cold that was, but it just shows that she's not just a person using a really advanced AI device. She does have some heart. So this is when Icicle brings Barbara to the top of the tower to look at Blue Valley, and this was his proper delusional villainous speech. He was obviously trying to point out how he wanted to help people make things better. He was going over his motivation, which is when Pat arrives with, man, yet again, normally, I don't know, this would come across like a cringy line, but I think it's because Stargirl have done such a good job at, you know, paving the bricks throughout this first season that made this line so, you know, profound. So when he's like, I'm here to protect my wife, and he's like, with what? And he says, our daughter. It felt awesome. It felt so full circle once again. Stargirl came in. This initially ended up in a bit of a stalemate because we had Icicle and Courtney both with hands on the staff, Icicle trying to freeze it, but luckily Yolanda, after the little blast that sends them both flying, dives after Stargirl so that she can, you know, always land on her feet because she's in the Wildcat suit, and with those kind of suit shock absorbers, that's why she can obviously, you know, withstand the fall. One thing I do want to say though, and I did think throughout the episode, I loved all of it, don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't want anything to change about the combat, the choreography or anything, but I think we need some training scenes next season. I do want to yet again add in the fact that there could have been like several more scenes of that already in season 1. However, it's been cut out. There's around 8 to 12 minutes cut out from each episode. So that could have been done, but just cut down for time. No matter what anyone says with how Yolanda was already into boxing and stuff, there's just no way you're going to convince me that she would be as proficient in that Ted Grant, you know, Wildcat suit against all of those drones. And I completely respect anyone who is absolutely fine with the way it is. And I am to a degree, but more power to you. It's just for someone like me, for them to have done as well as they did and as badass as they did in this episode without really seemingly any superhero training really featured this season. It's just a bit hard to believe. You know, it looks awesome, but us nitpicky comic book people kind of would have appreciated a few training scenes throughout the season that made it a bit more believable with these characters' journeys into such proficient heroes, to be honest. Bear in mind, we saw these people up against Tigress, like the Tigress, Sportsmaster, Jordan, Icicle, like, you know, the Dragon King. These people have been at it for God knows how long, and now you get my point. You get my point. It's just a little nitpick, something I would appreciate more into next season. And just as Icicle is about to go ham, Mike comes in and kills him. He shatters into 1,000 little ice pieces. There's quite a clever way to do it. I love his line of, does this mean I get to be in the JSA? I love how Mike, he literally killed the Icicle, the ISA's Icicle. That's just crazy. We had Pat and Barbara, happy days from this moment out. We had Justin says, you know, he didn't manage to kill a dragon, didn't do anything, but I completely disagree with that. Justin, you are such a good character, and everyone else, like Pat said, you know, there'll be plenty of dragons to kill, and he did help out, and, you know, we would like to see him again. And one thing that was really cool is how he dropped that he's going to go find his horse and the other soldiers of victory, and Pat would also like to see them again. So who knows? If we see Justin again, we could get like a Green Arrow line. Maybe when he returns and Pat asks him about finding the other soldiers, he could say, oh yeah, no, I caught up with Green Arrow and Speedy. They're doing cool. Like, that would be really, really awesome. But ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are getting some extraordinary stuff. Like, all of this is extraordinary. I mean, come on. So Barbara's like, you know, I wonder what they're going to say about this. But Pat's always like, the world always comes up with a story, and the news blames it on an earthquake, which is when we get to see the ISA HQ with none other than the Shade. I think we all knew this. I called this in my predictions video. I didn't know if it was going to happen, but it seemed like a no-brainer with all the teasers we actually had already gotten. So this was the Shade, guys. This was a season 2 setup. The Shade is going to be a huge part of season 2, supposedly, and I love how his powers started to engulf the ISA painting around him, and how he said here, oh Jordan, I told you it was folly. I think what he's getting out there is fairly self-explanatory, but if anyone really just didn't really get what he was saying, is that I think he told Jordan in the past, and this is maybe a reason as to why he left, is that he wasn't on board with Project New America. He thought that it was a plan that probably wouldn't come to fruition, and probably one that might be to the detriment of the ISA, and this is just kind of him saying, I hate to say I told you so, because he told them that it was basically foolish. But really nice setup for season 2. 2. The Shade is an interesting character, but we also had Cindy rummaging through the ISA's artifacts. But this is where she finds the Black Diamond. She's like, I see you in there, Eclipso. And wow, I really didn't expect this. And already the teasers and the setup that Jeff Johns is already doing for season 2 is so much more than we get from any other show. So if you don't know who Eclipso is, yet again, I'll probably go over this in a future video, just kind of tying off the ribbon of season 1 in just one extra video and what we can expect from season 2. But Eclipso, that's the Heart of Darkness, that little black diamond, which was actually, if I remember correctly, mined on Apocalypse. Obviously, you should all know where and what Apocalypse is. But yeah, this little black diamond houses Eclipse, and he's often depicted as the spirit of God's wrath. But there has been, like in several different iterations, it's kind of slightly twist and turned, but it's usually the same premise, give or take, if you know what I mean. And he's known to possess many characters, usually like villains or even heroes who come into contact with this black diamond. And the reason why he does that is because he wants to achieve the destruction of Earth. So without getting too into this, he's been defeated by Starman before. Like, it sounds like a really cool tease for season 2. Either way, we can go over this in another video. But I do have another question. What happened to Sportsmaster, Tigress, and Grundy? I know some of you may say that's getting a little bit too intricate or maybe nitpicky, but, we do have to ask these questions. Where is Sportsmaster? Where is Tigress? We don't really have an answer. It was completely left with them knocked out on the floor. If this was the Flash, they would have been put in metacuffs and put in the pipeline, but this isn't the way it works for Stargirl. It just wasn't really addressed. So you just have to assume that they're licking their wounds somewhere. As for Grundy, there really is no explanation. You just kind of have to insert your own comic book logic here of, I guess he just walked off and now he's free in the world. It's not like he's being caged up because the ISA are completely fractured now. Like, everyone is licking their wounds. Those that are left, Icicle is dead, but we have the Gambler, Sportsmaster, Tigress. Now we have the Shade in the ISA HQ. I have so many questions, really. Like, what is the plan with Stargirl and Pat? Did they just leave the ISA HQ completely open? I don't know. Maybe, yet again, maybe you're thinking of getting too nitpicky, but there are these questions and they are present. But at the very end of the episode, guys, we got the 6 weeks later, Christmas time. Everyone seems happy in Courtney's home. Very full circle, very wholesome, especially when she decides to give the present she intended for her father to Pat, who is now basically her father. What more can I say than this was just a lovely way to tap off the end of the episode. Although, yet again, I'm sorry to pick it. I love that ending where the staff taps on her window and she decides to have a bit of a flying fun session together and flies off in Winter Wonderland. I mean, she must have been freaking freezing. But out of nowhere, Pat decides to join her. The only reason I find this a little bit funny is because, they were literally in Christmas morning. They were getting ready for like Christmas lunch or whatever, or Christmas dinner. But yet Pat and Courtney just decide to fly off. Like, I imagine everyone back at home is just like, what are they doing? Where are they doing? Why are they doing? It's Christmas, like, we need you back. But they're just chilling at the top of the... Either way, I get it. It's for cinematic, cool closure purposes of a finale, but it must be so random AF to the other members of the household. But that was a lovely way to end it, guys, and we had that mid-credit scene. And honestly, I thought this was picking up from Courtney's dad, like in that car, just being back in California. But then we have this man knocking on Pat's old apartment or whatever it is. And the guy's like, well, he moved a while ago. Then it reveals who this person was looking for Pat. And he says his name is Sylvester Pemberton. Wow. What? I have no idea what to tell you guys. I'm not even joking when I say that. I have no idea what they're doing. My first instinct is this really Sylvester Pemberton? Because he did die. Like, if we look at this logically, he died. Why would he have faked his death? If he had faked his death, why wouldn't he have told Pat? Even if he had faked his death and didn't want to tell anyone because he wanted to stay extra low because the ISA were obviously picking off people, like our man. Maybe he wanted to avoid that, but he still would have told Pat. So it's just making me think, who is this? Is this really Sylvester? How? It doesn't make sense, but I trust this show. Like, I don't know what they've got up their sleeves, but there's going to be a cool, logical explanation behind this, and I cannot wait to find out what. What a fantastic episode, everyone. Say what you will about Stargirl, not every show is perfect. You can always pick something out of everything, but as far as shows go and quality and caliber, and when you compare it to the other DC TV, realm of shows that we've got, whether it's the CW, whether it's DC Universe, which is obviously in this lineup because DC Universe created Stargirl Season 1. This is what I mean. The reason why I'm interested interested in the DC Universe shows more these days is because it's quite simply this. It's like the next evolution. I feel like the Arrowverse is continuing on. That's enough for a lot of people, don't get me wrong, and I still enjoy The Flash, but I feel like we've already evolved, and this is like the new era of superhero age. Do you know what I mean? With these shows like Stargirl, this is the bar. They've set the new bar, and the other shows aren't meeting it. I mean, can you really compare something like Batwoman season 1 to freaking No, of course you can't. What a fantastic season it has been. Guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like this video if you've enjoyed my Stargirl coverage all season long. I just want to thank you all sincerely for your support on the channel, your comments, your interaction, you sharing the video, you liking the video. It really does help out. Let me know if you'll be interested in seeing a follow-up finale video. Don't forget, guys, if you are brand new to the channel, I have hosted an interview with Brainwave Jr., Jake Austin Walker himself. We Speak Everything, episode 10. I will be doing future interviews on the channel. If you're a Doom Patrol fan, I've also spoke with Dorothy Spinner, Abigail Shapiro. But that is it for Stargirl for now, guys, but far from the last video I'll be making. Make sure you stay subscribed or subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on for extra Stargirl videos, news updates, explanation videos, you name it. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all, Starlings, in the next video. Goodbye.